r/NuclearRevenge. First story. Nuclear feline. Revenge. Crazy. Entitled Neighbor tries to bleach my sister's cat. Cat gets revenge. I count this as a nuclear revenge story, but not in the traditional sense. This happened many years ago. My older sister had this awful, bitchy neighbor who had a serious hard-on for C's seal point Sammy's cat. I'll call neighbor CN. For crazy neighbor, sister is C's. Me is self-explanatory. CN was a black-haired, plump, 40-something divorcee who annoyed everyone in the neighborhood. She had zero understanding of boundaries and liked to come over to people's homes, barge in and look, snoop around, opening drawers and cabinets and touching their stuff. Once she even went into someone's fridge and grabbed herself a ginger ale, then got mad when the homeowner took it back. If you left your door, front or back, unlocked for more than 10 minutes, chances were she'd just come right in. She stole yard decorations from other people's yards and had been caught on more than one occasion pocketing something she'd snagged off a mantle or table of a house she'd invaded, and she would always throw a tantrum when she got busted. Cops had been called on her many times, but she was good at being pathetic, so most people didn't press charges. Unfortunately, this made her bolder. Basically, she was the entitled bitch of the neighborhood. C's was, unfortunately, one of her favorite victims. She'd come over, without calling, barge her way in and ask, demand, to see C's cat, telling C's how beautiful he was, and how much she wanted a cat just like him. C's, being rather non-confrontational, would let her see the cat, who didn't like the woman, then make her leave. CN never wanted to leave, and had to basically be pushed out the door. Oh, and she despised me, because I wouldn't let her in when I answered the door, nor would I tolerate her BS in any way if she got past my sister. CN was so obsessed with the cat, and offered to buy him many times. But C's loved that cat. He'd been the runt of the litter, and rejected by his mom. My sister had taken him, and bottle fed him, mothered him and saved his life. He wasn't a pet, he was her child. So C's of course always said no. This royally pissed off CN. One day the cat got out. He wasn't an outdoor cat, so C's and I immediately started looking for him. We were checking the bushes and behind the flower pots in her backyard when we heard a very distinctive yowl, one of pure rage, followed by a very human shriek of pain, coming from CN's house. Suddenly, the doggy door on CN's back door slams open, and out runs my sister's cat, his tail and one rear paw covered in what smelled like hair bleach. I'm allergic to bleach, and immediately recognized smell as he passed me, dashing past us, and into C's house. Next thing you know, CN's back door slams open, and out she comes, cursing up a blue streak. Rugged claw marks adorned her left cheek, and one of her hands had a deep bite wound that had completely saturated one of the gloves, the kind one gets with any hair coloring kit, she was wearing and running down her hand and arm. Turned out when the cat had gotten out, CN had grabbed him, took him inside, then tried to use hair bleach to bleach the brown out of his tail and paws, in order to change his appearance, so she could keep him. Unfortunately for her, she didn't know shit about Sammy's cats and just how violent they can be. They were, originally, temple guardians for a reason lol. The moment CN put that bleach on that cat's tail, he went absolutely berserk, letting out that yowl of rage we'd heard, clawing up CN's face, and sinking his fangs deep into her hand. She pushed herself between the bushes, the ones that look like tall, green paintbrush heads C's used to separate the property line, and began yelling. No, not yelling. Shrieking. She shrieked that C's cat had wandered into her kitchen while she was cooking, and when she tried to pick him up, he attacked her for no reason. Clearly this was total BS. CN then proceeded to call C's the N-word several times. She's half black, and me a effing half-breed wetback slut. I'm half Hispanic. We have different dads. She screamed that my C's was stupid for keeping such a dangerous animal, and that my C's would be paying all her medical bills. She then got right in my sister's face, pushed my sister hard in the chest with her uninjured hand, saying she was calling animal control and intended to have that thing put down. CN opened her mouth to say, shriek, some more, but my C's, after hearing that last statement, and without one word or warning, hauled off and decked her. She landed on her butt in the grass, now clutching her left eye. C then loudly suggested CN go screw herself with a hot curling iron, then ran inside to find her poor cat, while I called the cops. The whole thing from start to end lasted only about 5 minutes. C's found him hiding in the laundry room and quickly cleaned him off in the sink. Meanwhile, CN is still on her ass in our backyard, howling like a bandit, until the cops arrived. I told them what happened, and they later talked to my sister after she'd tended to her cat, who gave them the same story I did, even admitting to hitting CN, in self-defense of course. It didn't hurt her case that CN had left a bloody handprint on my sister's shirt when she'd shoved her. CN, of course, told them something entirely different. Her story was that she was about to bleach her hair when my sister's cat came in and attacked her. She also said both C's and I attacked her too. I apparently kicked her in the stomach after C's punched her, but the cops found no evidence of bruising, and the scratches on her face kind of masked her swelling eye. I also think cops turned a blind eye, pun intended, to it, considering the circumstances. But, since there was a clear blood trail leading into CN's open back door, cops felt they had probable cause to go in. I think if CN had been paying more attention, she'd have refused them entry. The blood trail led to a sink in the first floor bathroom. Blood, cat fur, a bleach applicator and the box it came in were in the sink and on the floor. The cat's collar was in the garbage. CN kept trying to play the victim, but the cops didn't buy it. She got arrested, and my sister pressed charges for theft and assault. CN also got nabbed for possession of stolen goods. Cops found a bunch of DVD players and CD players, still in their boxes, sitting on her coffee table, and in the spare room next to her bathroom, and she had a bunch of prescription drug bottles with other people's names on her kitchen counter. Turned out she'd also been stealing neighbors' painkillers when she'd visited them. And, since she was a renter, the property owner gave her the boot for breach of contract. She went to jail and had to pay for the cat's vet bill. He was okay, but a bit traumatized, and had a yellow patch on his butt, paw, and tail for several months. CN's hand got infected from the cat bite, and it turned out it had also caused tendon and nerve damage as well. Moral of the story: stay out of people's houses, and have the common sense not to mess with a cat named Lucifer. Edit. I'd like to thank the people who gave me the gold, silver and platinum. It means a great deal to me that you liked and enjoyed this. Second story. My dogs defend my family and my friend. Mod's favorite. This was many years ago, and I was never charged. The case was closed as a home invasion that was stopped with reasonable force. My dogs were not harmed or removed from me. My neighbor, let's call her Anne, was a nice lady, a single mom with one little boy. When she moved she had some rat issues caused by the previous owner's hoarding, and since I'm not bothered by rats, and had a rat dog as well as my big boys and girls, I was able to help out a bit. She and my wife became great friends and her boy loved my mastiffs and the Great Dane I owned back then. Often when Anne was working her lad would come and stay with my wife and I, and the dogs, after school and on weekends. About a year after Anne moved in she told us she was sure she was being followed by a man who had approached her in a bar on one of her twice yearly nights out with her sister. She barely went out socializing. It was sheer bad luck she met this man at all, and asked us to keep an eye out for his type and color car, and if we could get his number plate she could give it to the police. We, of course, promised to help, and carried on about that day. Late that night my Dane woke me whining, and led me to the side door. This opened onto a shared driveway with my neighbor. I opened it thinking he needed to go to the toilet in the garden, but as soon as I opened it, I saw a man inside Anne's kitchen, and then heard her scream. I dashed over the drive, and pushed open her kitchen door. He had forced it, probably what woke my dogs, and shouted at him to stop. He went for me, realized pretty quickly I knew how to fight, and that he was losing. In the struggle he managed to get free, and took off down the road. We called the police and reported it, and gave statements. When the police arrived, Anne and her boy stayed with us for the rest of the night. The next day she went to stay with relatives using another friend's car just in case he was hanging around. I scouted ahead a bit, to make sure she could get away safely. That night I woke up to the sound of a man screaming in my house. I could have gone straight downstairs to see what was going on, but I waited till it stopped before investigating, since it sounded exactly like the man from the night to me, and I figured he needed some quality time with some real predators. He wasn't moving when I went into the living room, but the dogs were really happy with themselves. What the police and I worked out had happened was he quietly broke into my kitchen through the side door. My mastiffs and the Dane waited till he was deep in the house before they struck. He was ragdolled by the neck from behind by my Dane, and while this was happening the mastiffs tore his legs to shreds. The little ratter my wife owned got stuck into from the blood all over him at the end of it. He had suffered multiple fatal wounds to his thighs, neck and face. The rapist/intruder had a backpack on with knives, duct tape, gags and a small hand axe, DNA, and had scratched him, and my and Anne's statements confirmed he was the same man who had tried to rape my neighbor. He had no idea I had large dogs, it seems. Or he was really fucking stupid. Who cares? Those dogs have all died of old age now, but I bred from the mastiffs and still have their pups and grandpups. The Dane made it to 12, which is ancient for one of them, and got a mastiff from me shortly after this event, and she still owns large dogs too. I recommend a large dog as a companion, and as something that will fuck up any intruder for you. As Bill Burr says, it's like owning a gun you can pet.